They are the loudest questions, yet most ignored and unanswered. You know, the inescapable ones not formed by words, but felt as energy within regarding every important decision, endeavor, and relationship. Will this be right for me? Am I fulfilled? What is my unique purpose? And how do I maximize it? From the moment we enter the world, there exists invisible energy or spirit with volumes of information. It is as if we arrive self-contained with a specific essence and purpose, awaiting our conscious revelation and fulfillment. However, also from the moment we are born, we begin consuming blinders, learn ideals, expectations, labels, behavior, and energy foreign to all of our original essence. These binders are so effective at burying our purest expression that until we deliberately go within, connect the dots, and face ourselves, we unwittingly live with varying degrees of internal conflict, devoid of realization of our unique purpose and value to ourselves and the world. If you're interested in knowing who is the author of those words and the book that he has written, then I invite you to stay tuned. We will be coming back in a moment.
Hello.
Hi.
Is this Peter the Healer?
Yes. No, actually, I'm the audio engineer for the show, Peter the Healer, your celestial broadcaster.
Where is Peter the Healer?
That's a good question. I really don't know. I've been trying for the last 10 minutes trying to reach him, but he's not answering.
Have you tried tuning into 528 Hertz, the love frequency?
No, that's a good idea. I'll give it a try. Let's see what happens. Hey, you know what? I think I'm getting some
Radio Noise.
Rádio Noise 593.
Anybody out there?
DJ e produtor brasileiro Rod Novaes.
Aaron McCormick is an author, entrepreneur, inspirational speaker, and artist whose path to success and fulfillment defies societal norms and expectations in nearly every way. Raised by a single mom on the south side of Chicago, McCormick, since the age of 23, was one of the world's leading technology business transformation sales executives, earning millions and receiving numerous awards and distinctions. He has been honored as Best of IBM, an award bestowed only upon the top 1% of 400,000 employees, founded several companies and earned an MBA from a top business school with the rare precedent of having no prior undergraduate college degree. McCormick courageously stood up to and escaped the fundamentalist religious cult in which he was raised, resulting in loss of his universe of friends and family. With the combination of deep empathy, wisdom, and self-made success, McCormick ignites the innate ability we all have within to decode our answers for maximum clarity and self-actualization. Aaron has helped countless people of all backgrounds realize their greater fulfillment and success in areas of career, personal power, love and relationships, sales, entrepreneurship, and leadership. Welcome, Aaron.
Hey, Peter. Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you on the show. I think that what you bring to this show is exactly the type of thing we want to have.
Thank you for that.
And you have an incredible story to tell. I wonder if you could begin with your roots. You mentioned you're from the south of Chicago, which I understand is rather problematic in terms of violence and ghetto types of mentality. I wonder if you can tell the audience a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, it's funny. You say the South of Chicago. You almost say it like the South of France, as if it's
Okay.
a glamorous place. It's actually
Well,
the
I
South
am
Side.
in Quebec. We do have a bit of a French influence here.
Yeah, no, South Side of Chicago. So yeah, the South
Oh, I
Side
see. Okay.
is yeah. I mean, it's like a lot of big major cities. It's predominantly black. There's a big historical reason from the South and the migration north, that kind of thing. But I was raised in the both South side of the city and also parts of the South suburbs, which is also predominantly black. Single mom. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. Got 2 older brothers and an older sister. My parents divorced when I was about 3 or 4 years old. We left Chicago, went to Houston for a couple years, and then to Phoenix, Arizona for a couple years, and then back to Houston for a couple years, and then back to Chicago. So from 3 to 10, it was Houston and Phoenix, and then from 10 on until like 20, it was all Chicago. So my elementary school, high school, and then when I when I hit 20 or so, and I started in technology, I thought, let me either go to Dallas, which was booming at the time for jobs and such, or to the West Coast, which is big for tech, but cost of living was super high. So I ended up moving to Dallas. But you know, my background was in many ways normal and not terribly crazy, but in other ways very abnormal, particularly in the area of the religion I was raised was non-standard. It wasn't your typical Christian religion. It's very much an extreme sort of fundamentalist religion, some characterized as a cult, because if you ever disagree or think for yourself, so to speak, you are labeled kind of an enemy of the church, and you are excommunicated from all friends, family, all that. So there's that, and all the other limitations that go along with it. There's been a lot of celebrities that have also been raised in this same religion. I don't usually go into the details of it because I'm not trying to grind an axe on that, because everyone has their truth, and those that are in it, they believe it's their truth. I don't knock it whatsoever. If it's right for you, then have at it. That's why we're all free. But the point is, I eventually felt conflict with the separatist sort of way about it, and the many ways that it divides the what I would call your soul, meaning you give up all of your power and freedom of thought to these concepts that are in some ways biblically based, but extremely executed. And so now I'm in a place, Peter, where at least on that particular topic, I'm spiritual but not religious. Like, I respect every religion's purpose, which is to provide a sort of anchoring to people's lives and some structure, that sort of thing. But I'm pretty aware, probably similar to you, that there are certain common themes that is laced across all religion, whether it's Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Muslim, and that is that we are energy and we are connected. We are one with Source, God, whatever name we apply to it. And so we're also hyper connected to each other. And that has actually transformed my personal joy and fulfillment inside, my connection to the rest of humanity in ways you couldn't imagine. So I've transformed a lot on that particular front of my youth or my upbringing.
Okay, so I'm curious to know, to what do you attribute your spiritual sensitivity and awareness? I ask that question because I too have had some experiences in the business world, in the business community, and it's not something that I saw, anyways, when I was in it, as being necessarily open to the mindset that you've just expressed, you know, sensitivity to spirituality, energy. How did you bring that into your understanding?
That's a loaded question.
Did it
wasn't.
occur? Do you think it was there before you went into the business world, or did you kind of develop it along the way?
Well, this is part of what I also discuss in the book. In fact, one of the key points is I don't think any of our true essence or spirit, disposition, aura, whatever you want to call it, needs to really be changed at all. It needs to be discovered, meaning we've always been, before we were born, and when we're born, we have this certain thing about us that is our invisible animation. It's the personality. People say, oh, so-and-so has a me.
We just lost your signal. I don't know if you could hear me, but if for some reason it cut out, we'll hope that it comes back in a few minutes, a few seconds. Everyone, hang in there. This sometimes happens with the signal. Somehow it doesn't always work. Aaron, if you can hear me, you might want to sign out and then try to come back in, because it seems that your connection is not working. Can you hear me? Yeah, so he's going to do that and come back in a few moments. It's just fascinating individual. I mean, we've got, he still looks like a kid. I hope he's not insulted by that, but as you're going to find out, I mean, this guy has gone from, I said rags to riches, right? I mean, he had to work very hard to get there, but he has this innate ability to be able to do this. So I'm hoping that he's going to come back and join us and get a good connection this time. This is always an issue with technology. One thing or another seems to go wrong. Now, it all depends on the connection that he has. So I'm going to read we're going to talk about a book that he wrote called Unbounded. And I'm just going to read to you one of the latest reviews that he got on Amazon. It was reviewed in the United States on June 22nd, so that's not long ago, by Mandy Good. And Mandy Good, she says, this book was so moving and inspired me to get unstuck from the way of thinking I had gotten accustomed to. It helped me look within for answers instead of always looking to other people for advice, opinions, or making decisions based on what everyone else may think. It was a book I could very much relate to and encouraged me to dig deep and face a lot of things in my life I've been avoiding. Highly recommended read. So there you go. That's one of the great, here he is, he's back. Aaron, do you hear me? Hello, Aaron, connecting to audio. Okay, so he's connecting to audio, and maybe we won't get his face. But,
I'm here.
Okay, great. So we're gonna have to continue with audio only. That's the trouble with, there's so much demand on the band network, the waves. They seem to be unable to carry all the data. Oh, there he is. He's now there. So I mean, you should know. I mean, you worked at IBM, right? So you know about data. When did you start with IBM? What year?
That was 2010.
2010. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I spent 7 years there.
you
But I had a 10, 15-year career before that in technology too. I have no idea what just happened. It just went out.
Well, that's this for me is par for the course. It's I had an interview yesterday, and you know what I did? Or what I didn't do, I didn't press the record button. So we did this whole hour,
Wow.
2 people. It was a great show. It went really well. And then bang, I realized right after when I tried to convert it. Oh my goodness.
I don't
Anyway,
know if we're able to edit that out or what, but
yes, I'm going to edit it out. Don't worry. But what I did in the meantime, I don't know if you were able to hear me, but I read one of the reviews on your book from Amazon, and it was the one from Mandy Good. So you can have a look at it. Maybe you have. It was on June the 22nd, raving review, as all of them are. So let's get back to where you left off. You had been saying that, yeah, you were in this kind of religious cult. It sounds familiar to me. Once you started saying celebrities, I was thinking about Tom Cruise and
No,
the like. Not that one. Okay.
no, it's definitely
Not
Christian.
Scientology.
No,
Okay.
think in terms of Jackson 5, the Wayans brothers, the
Okay.
Serena and Venus Williams tennis player sisters. I mean, this is
Okay.
a Christian-based one. They knock on doors.
All right. I think
Uh,
it's JW.
You got it right.
All right.
But
So,
no, the last thing you were asking me was how does or where did and when did I establish the integrated side or the ability to be both, how shall we say, physically grounded and corporate, and yet esoterically connected, if you will. One of the things I talk about in the book is how all of our answers of what we are and why we're here, meaning what we came to experience, the challenges we have planned to experience, and how our soul will grow and expand from the experience. All these things are, the clues are all over our life from the beginning, and it's all over our essence, meaning if you ask people about how you were at these really young ages, right, at 2, at 6, at 10, you'll see how you naturally are before you've been taught through peers, environmental stuff, societal things, expectations around your where you live, your nationality, your race, obviously your sex, masculine, feminine, what's good and bad. So many different things, both labels as well as behavioral expectations, are invisibly and quite, strongly impressed upon us to where we gradually suppress and morph things that were us. And I think in my case, actually, before I even talk about my case, to learn about your own self is to understand your original spark or aura, and how far you may or may not have deviated can be identified by how much current conflict you have inside of yourself in multiple topics of your life. So do you love your job? Because that's where we spend most of our time. Are you emotionally connected to it, or is it something you have to do because after all, we got to make a living, which is true, but how much does it align with your true essence? Are you in relationships that don't enhance you or feel congruent inside? It's more friction. It's more work than it has to be, but you don't exit them because guilt of hurting somebody, or you don't want to be single again. You're afraid of you have insecurities about getting another person, your age, all kinds of different things, even down to friendships. A lot of us have friendships that represent way more load on us, and it's okay to be helpful and encouraging to others, but if there's not an interchange, if there's not something that you are growing from, if it's so much friction and and I don't mean friction always in arguments, because sometimes we can just quietly suppress a lot. If everything is chafing at you, but you stay in it, those are all examples of how we've gradually morphed in multiple categories of life to where we're not just experiencing our true desired joy and fulfillment. And I think, to your question of how and why did I, none of us can really explain why we have the original spark we had when we were born. That's something you got to ask your higher self or ask God, source, etc. But you can point to it and you can identify it. The real question becomes, how do we go through this life? Do we value, or let me take that back. Which bothers us the most? Does it bother you more to be in conflict with that invisible force inside of you? If that's the case, then you are more spirit-based or heart-driven naturally, meaning that invisible thing, even if it scares you to, to do something in line with yourself, it's too hard to not go in line with yourself. So therefore, you will blaze a different trail, and it will be challenging, but it'll be so enriching. Or are you like most of us are, and we tend, just like most people are right-handed, we tend to be left-brained, and we're more mind-driven. So we're much more affected by the things externally taken in, and it bothers you more to go against what's expected of your family, what's expected of your religious base, what's expected of your nationality or of your sex or of all these different things. If it scares you more and is more uncomfortable to buck that thing, that's because that's information that's taken in. And neither one is right or wrong. It's what you chose to be. So once you understand, which you are, and I happen to be one of the ones that is, I just can't go against myself. I've tried, because I have the same fear that everybody has. And I'm like, oh, it's not that I'm just full of, some special courage. And I just, I'm not affected by the same anxieties everyone else has. I've got them all. But I consciously am aware that I can't escape my own self. And to disagree with myself is so painful because I can't get out of myself and that voice reminding me I'm not in compliance. Whereas if I disagree with you, Peter, or my boss or my mate or whoever else, we can separate. I can say, okay, are we done talking to Peter? Okay, goodbye. Or I can separate from a mate, or I can leave a job, but I can't leave myself. So I know how I'm wired, and that has, it's kind of it's made me a bridge of sorts, because I strongly bridge the spiritual esoteric aspects, though I didn't realize I was a bridge. And I also have a strong hold on the very anchored, analytical, data-driven world that we're in. And I also happen to be ambidextrous in the most odd way. So I've learned my place as a bridge. The question is
interesting. If I can just comment, if you're ambidextrous,
yes,
not just in terms of which hand you use, both hands, but obviously you're using both the left and the right hemisphere. The way you're talking, it's incredible. I mean, it's rare, and I'm a previous psychologist, so I met all kinds of people, and it's rare to see someone who possesses that balance between the two. You've got the right and the left brain speaking to each other, and they've both developed incredibly the way you're talking. How? That's the question you haven't answered yet. If I may be persistent, how do you think you developed? Was that just part of your spark when you were born? That's what you had.
What I'm trying to say is, no one can say how and why we are this way, because I've always been this way.
Okay, that's my question. So you've always felt this way. You've always had it. Okay.
Yes, and what I was trying to allude to, Peter, is when you understand what you are, meaning you understand that, if you happen to be right-handed, doesn't mean you're absent creativity, but studies show that left-handed is a bit more creative. And just like I just alluded to, heart-driven or mind-driven, there is no wrong in how you chose to show up in this experience. And that's the key point of the book, is for you to not be told things that are so and give you rah-rah mantras, but to let you look back on your journey and see the things that scared the shit out of you, so to speak, and that were so much for you to handle at that moment in time. And then later on, you look back and you realize, I needed that. That served me. I'm better because of it. And that's just one concept. There's so many areas that everything we are, down to even the so-called unfortunate things, our deformities or physical ailments, our idiosyncrasies, those are all specific challenges to show you you are not even the thing that you thought you were. You're not that physical male form, black, white, etc., handicapped, whatever the so-called human experience is. There's parts of life that will show you that you're actually different. So no, I don't have an answer for why I'm ambidextrous, both figuratively and literally. But we all are what we are, and as soon as we learn what that is, we can start to act more.
Well, that's a key. That's a key, is to, some people, it takes them an entire lifetime before they figure out who they really are, because they have been binded. I'm using the term that you've used in your book. People are binded by societal norms, influences, TV, media, and friendships and their careers. But you seem to have had a connection with that very early on, and you kept, faithful to who you were and who you are. How do you, what would you tell somebody who's stuck with that concept? Oh, family is everything, society, my dad wants me to do this, my mother wants me to do this, I don't want to disappoint them, I know it goes against my feelings, what I feel, my gut feeling, but I don't want to disappoint them.
I would tell them that they have to live their truth in that moment. So if their current truth is that the loss of that family is too great to bear, then they obviously won't do something that will cause them to lose that family. They will conform. And it's only when their natural essence has said, the death of me is more painful than the death of that relationship. I no longer want to be dead. This is exactly why people come out of the closet, whether it be gay, LGBTQ, all kinds of aspects of life where you finally say, the real me is no longer happy being handcuffed by binders, so to speak, that I've administered myself, because I'm the one that lives in the fear of the result of stepping out of the binder, and that fear doesn't control me anymore. So the purpose of the book is to take people on a journey that makes that reality more consciously aware for them, so they can see that what they think is happiness isn't necessarily, but they'll be the judge of it. There's no judge in the book saying, if you then you're not happy. It's full of introspection and questions to bring out your absolute truth on multiple topics. And everyone's truth is their own, right? This is not, and that's part of the challenge with some motivational speakers and ideas is they'll serve a purpose in the moment because you're being fed ideas for the mind to make you go, yes, yes, like this. But real energy or real motivation is primarily by belief. And belief, the best teacher for belief is experience, right? When you go through something, you just believe it. So our life is full of little experiences that we've not necessarily connected the dots on to recognize the lesson. And when you actually unveil the lesson that has been repetitively taught you and you've experienced it, you go, oh, now I get it, right? And now you make a slight adjustment and then things start flowing smoothly. So it's really basically a deliberate way of being what you might describe me as from the beginning, in terms of left, or spirit-based, where I've gone through a lot of stuff in my life, Peter, because of living my truth. I wouldn't have it any other way. Well, other people can do that when they see the value of their truth and the personal experience of living their truth. So you got two types of people: those that naturally do it, and those are the people that, they're not always these people, but most often when you hear of people that were something incredible at a very young age, is because they only harnessed and they focused on what was their natural calling. They're actually not better than anyone at all. They simply are in line with what they really are. Even though there may have been obstacles and issues that told them don't do this, they were hell-bent, so to speak, on that thing that speaks to them. We all have these things. The difference is some of us will go down that path no matter what. Others will tend to be scared and therefore follow societal expectations and all that stuff. Well, you can that's what books are for, right? Books are for those that want to be, that consciously decide, I want to not be in this bad relationship, or have this dead-end job, or I feel like there's something more for me, but I need the data, I need the evidence, I need something more than just my gut to convince me that it's safe to do this. And that's why we share with each other and we write books, and we, that's how we expand if we're not doing it naturally.
What about confidence? I mean, how does confidence, like you seem to have confidence, but I also sense obviously there's a sensitive side to you. I mean, you can speak openly about subjects that previously, you'd only see certain types of people doing that, but I obviously am sensitive to it. I was in the field of psychology for many years, but you seem to have a natural way of speaking sensitively, but also you exude this confidence. Has that always been with you, the confidence? Or do you think your own early life experiences living in the south of Chicago, am I saying it right? South side of Chicago.
Right.
Almost say it's just another. I'll have an egg flipped over the other side. Oh, whatever. Go ahead.
Right.
How or when did you start feeling this courage and confidence? I mean, you must have met a lot of challenges.
Well, first of all, the confidence was never absolute, still is not absolute. I felt insecure in many situations, both physically, whether being the only Black in certain situations, in business and other times. I'm not insecure, just aware of that. As a child, there are times when I was smaller than others. I'm 5'7" now. Or I have questions and I feel the challenge of people are going to look at me crazy if I ask this question. So I feel the initial prick of the binder of fear that I shouldn't do something. But the difference is the push often of the benefit of doing what's inside of me steps a bit higher than the fear. So it's not just absolute confidence. All the same anxiety and fear is there, but it's kind of more painful to me to suppress. What's also interesting is on the confidence thing, I don't view it as confidence the way people think of confidence. I guess there's just been a knowing that's been inside of me, apparently always, which I think is the truth of everyone. We just are more buried under these binders than we all are at different levels of how much weight we've chosen to put on ourselves, the thickness we got to sift through to get to the truth. I've always known, Peter, that I am my own limitation. Long before anything, like there's a concept of growth and fixed mindset. And you can tell which one each of us are. And your children, you got siblings. After I tell you this, you'll be able to know what almost everyone that you personally know, you know which one they have a natural bias toward. And we're either growth or we're fixed. We can grow to be more growth, and we can be, I guess, tormented to where if we were once growth, we become more fixed. I guess that's possible too. But we start with a bias. And ever since I was a child, I've always felt like whatever I put my mind to, I can do. I never felt inferior to anything. I thought we were all capable of whatever. And when you watch children like I coached my son's 3-year-old baseball team, t-ball team last year. And I remember when I played Little League baseball, you have two different types of behaviors when disappointment happens, when failure happens, right? You have, if one kid strikes out, he might say, I suck, I hate this game, blah, 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 and really take it really hard. Another kid strikes out and just says, I'm gonna hit a home run next time, right? Or I'm gonna do better next time. And they just move on. The first kid requires a lot more coddling as you instruct, because they think that what happened is fixed. It means that they are just bad, or they're just not going to be good. It's fixed. So you got to tell the kid the 10 ways that they're good. And oh, by the way, you need to focus on your swing more. The growth mindset kid, like a Michael Jordan, those of us that know that no specific single event or thing uniformly defines us, it's just what happened at that moment. Those kids, you can kick them, you can tell them, you can say, do better, and they're so coachable because they know with or without you, somehow they know I'm the result of whatever I am. So we are naturally more fixed, or we're naturally more growth. So I was apparently always growth mindset because I never viewed my color, my height. I used to slam dunk. I'm 5'7". I used to be able to slam dunk. I mean, you know, I've never considered limitations to be absolute. I guess
You're
that's
5'7" and you slam dunked.
I used to slam dunk. Yeah, back on my.
Ooh, what did you eat for breakfast?
Well, part of that is also my physical. You know, I'm the youngest of three boys, so competing. The youngest is usually more athletic, more advanced. So I had them to compete with. My father was very athletic. It's part of it's physical genetics, of course, and then the other part of it is just the mental spirit I have that believes I can do whatever I want to do. I never, and that's not an arrogance, that's not a confidence. That's apparently studies have proven the power of the mind, right? I mean, studies have proven, like placebo effect. People that are on their deathbed, if you tell them that you're now about to be dying, you know, the proverbial story, I don't know whether this is true or really happened, but it makes sense. You know, you make a kind of feeling on someone's wrist, and you slowly pour warm water on them, and you tell them, hey, since you're, you know, like I used to hear this, and I'm like, I bet that really happened. You know, like some prisoners on death row, who knows in what part of history this may have happened, and they want to experiment with the placebo effect. So you're going to die anyway. We're going to execute you now, so to speak. Or, you know, so they slice your wrist. That warm water you think is your blood, and you will slowly, you know, die yourself off, stop your heart from beating. Whether that happened or that's a theory, I don't even know. But I'm just saying, so many studies have been done on the power of the mind. So I think I've known this, and it's a truth for everyone. But we, you know, to what level it's buried under other stuff that has told us, no, you can't because you don't have a college degree. No, you can't because you're handicapped. No, you can't because you're an immigrant or you're black or whatever the case may be, or you can't be, you know, sensitive and cry because you're a man, or you know, you can't talk that way because you're a girl. Stay in your place. There's all these things that have morphed us, right?
Yeah. Well, Aaron, we're coming to the close of the hour. We still have some minutes to go, but before we stop, I wanted to show the folks out there your book. And if all goes well, I'll be able to choose it as a virtual background here and press my fingers together that it will work. Cross the fingers. And yeah, so if we come back to me, you'll see Aaron McCormick with his, on the title on his book, the cover of his book, Unbounded, Journey to Your Within. Now, I already wrote, or I spoke earlier about one of the reviews, tremendous reviews on your book. And I wonder if you can just tell everyone a little bit more about the different chapters and what they'll find in that book that can give them some inspiration on how to be successful.
Yes, and success is a very relative thing. I don't equate success purely with money. Success is totally up to the individual, and that's the beauty of it. So the book is divided into 3 parts. There's a 4th part, but that's more the conclusion. It is yourself. So how do you factually, internally realize who and what you are through your history and through your current energetic disposition? There's a way to go through that process. So there's self. Then there is the thing we spend most of our time on, which is our most valuable asset, by the way, is work. So how do we find alignment in business to be doing the things that really call to us, or that use the natural gifts and aptitudes and things that we enjoy and will therefore excel at? How do we find that thing so that work really isn't work and more money comes? Then there's relationships, which covers family, friends, romantic. Before you can have any kind of relationship or even do really well in business, you have to be able to understand yourself, your product, your just your energy before you can align with another set of energy. And then how do you actually do that part of it? Well, there's truisms that we'll all understand and have experienced on that front. And then the final one is becoming unbounded, which actually gets into things like anxiety that we all face and go through, and how that actually serves us and has the ability to transform you into a superhero of sorts. And I don't mean that facetiously. I really mean we are all energy before we are physical. We sense each other before we open our mouths. Dogs prove it, babies prove it. We are absolutely a vibrational frequency. And to the extent you go through anxiety and you transmute that anxiety, it is physically changing your vibrational essence. That is why some of the most inspirational people that we all know and love have the most crazy, harrowing experiences. There's a reason that you now love their vibration now. You love their energy, their essence, their unconditional love, or their motivation, all that stuff, because they've gone through that. So I want people to so understand that as dark as it gets, you're being served by it. And that will decrease your fear of future anxieties, and will help you be able to help yourself and others more.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. And on that point of darkness, I wonder if you could say a few words on your take of the George Floyd situation and all the protests and riots that took place in the aftermath. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, as an empath, I don't watch a lot of news. Obviously, I know about these events, but news is 95% negative, maybe even more, and then at 1 or 2% of a positive story. Humanity as a whole, there's dark energy, there's light energy. We have been skewed to dark energy for a very long time. I ultimately believe 2020 and future years is the ushering in of a new balance. And I don't mean that politically. There's no physical thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about nature and the restoration of balance. So I believe that that's on the horizon. And all this darkness we've experienced in 2020, including things like pandemics, the tragic death of an icon and his daughter, all in the first quarter. Then we have the protest that's taking innocent lives. More people have died in these protests than an entire year of unarmed Black people being killed by police. So as tragic as that is for anybody to be killed violently, especially if they're unarmed, whether accidental or deliberate and malicious by some officer, there's been 10 of those in 2019. Last time I checked, there were over 15 people that have died, innocent people, in the protests about this. So we're already on uncharted territory, as in overcorrecting. We're overcorrecting like the car, and it's getting worse. And then of course you have the media that is stoking the fires. The data says that 50 officers were killed in the line of duty in 2019, 49 to be exact. That is actually more than the number of all races of unarmed people killed by an officer. So more cops have died, been murdered on the job, than all unarmed people. And the Blacks happen to be the lowest number of unarmed people that have been killed in 2019. Whoever knew that? Now, that may be a different proportion because we're only 12% of the population. So the proportion may be a bit higher, but more than double the number of whites have been killed by an unarmed officer, and nobody knows these things. but the media knows it's a very sensitive thing for blacks because of the history in this country. So blacks are proud. They're also very sensitive because of, you know, the systemic racism that actually is around us. Blacks are more likely to be profiled by an officer, pulled over for something, than a white might be pulled over just to check things out. Same with Mexicans. I mean, you can't undo 400 years of a problem instantly. But Peter, this notion that black lives are easily snuffed out by an officer and they're just of no value, that is a completely fabricated narrative by media, who's also, I believe, and I know to be, owned by other entities that have other agendas that seek to create, you know, division, anarchy, and they do it almost every 4 years around election time. I have the same thoughts about COVID, SARS, Nile, all these different viruses happen to fall on election years to varying levels of severity. And this is all part of how we go within and be anchored to truth rather than being tossed about by all these external narratives. You know what I mean?
A word or two to summarize what people need to do now in the wake of all that 2020 has dished out to us. A word or two of what you think people need to do right now.
Go within, and that's not just about the book. You don't even need to read the book if you have other ways of doing it. Meditation, listening to the truth that is ubiquitous, but also completely out of sight, invisible to us all. The more we love ourselves and love the journey, I don't mean love like the typical self-love, my appearance, my race, my obesity, or my sexuality, all that stuff. No, I mean the truth of what I am as an energetic spirit being and my connection to each other. All the other fears will dissipate, all the other divisions and being threatened, because you'll then realize, even if somebody does me wrong, that serves me. So I'll have less fear, I'll be less triggered. I think the world is going to ascend meaning in vibration, meaning less low vibration, which includes division and guilt and fear and all these things that divide us. I think we're ultimately going to go up because all this darkness forces us to go within.
Well, Aaron, you have been absolutely incredible today. Aaron McCormick, you have been like very humble, sensitive, articulate, informative. You've spoken of your experience, and I'm sure a lot of people watching out there are going to be able to relate to what many of the things that you've said and talked about. And I think we could go on for many more hours talking about this and other subjects. Yeah,
because I didn't even get into your space background, which is intriguing in and of itself.
Yes. Well, I have a feeling, are you writing more books? Do you plan on writing more books, or are you doing some appearances?
There will be books, appearances. There's a documentary that I also have a screenplay for, if you will. So yes, there'll be more created.
So if you can send me all those links, I'll make sure that I post them at the bottom of the video. And this video will be posted on all my social media pages, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, you know, all of the different places. There will be connections. Also, this book is available at Amazon, I understand, and
Barnes & Noble.
Okay, Barnes & Noble as well. Great. It's been great speaking with you, Aaron.
You as well.
I wish you success, continued sensitivity, and coming from within. God bless you.
You as well, Peter. Keep up the good work, my friend.